Okay, we are episode one. We're entering kind of a twilight zone here, a Broadway musical movie soundtrack, um, movie soundtrack. What else is in there? Anyway, and it's organized somewhat, but not a lot. So anyway, now we're entering that. This is episode one, and here we go. Let's go. All that jazz. A movie. Roy Scheider, Bob Fosse's All That Jazz. I remember seeing the movie and enjoying the movie. It was pretty dark, Showtime, um, but some Ben Vereen on Broadway, George Benson. So there's some good music on here. I mean, that's kind of the idea. You pick these up, and they're usually a mixture of things. Sometimes they're, if it's a Broadway musical, it's going to have all show tune stuff and be probably pretty strong. But some soundtracks have a lot of different songs from different genres, and others have, like Henry Mancini, one that will be just the whole thing, right? Or oh, there's so many. Americathon. Um, I'm not as familiar with this one. Sorry. It's a Beautiful Day, performed by Beach Boys. Get a Move On by Eddie Money. So this is a bunch of different performers doing different tunes that they added to this movie. Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe. I see Fred Willard was in it, and Harvey Korman was in it, and so this might be a fun movie to check out at some point. I can't even remember. That must have been late '70s, early '80s. Okay. Absolute Beginners, the musical, David Bowie, Ray Davies. So a bunch of different artists. Um, but one of the ones I see on here, Style Council. Don't you know? Don't you? Have you ever been blue? Have you ever been blue? I pretty big fan of Style Council, so that being on here might have been the reason to pick this up. I'm not sure at this point, but that's Absolute Beginners. It obviously got a little damage there in the bottom. I had a leak from the ceiling at one point that hit right in this area. So even though some of the records got damaged, some got thrown out, some I just liked too much, and kept them. Back to the Beach. This was Frankie Avalon, Annette Funicello, 30 years after they had done these movies, and they brought in some different characters that were fun. I mean, Pee Wee Herman in here, and so this was a fun movie. I'm sure there's a lot of fun tunes thrown in there. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Dick Dale, Pipeline. Well, it's probably worth it just for that, right? I mean, for me, yes. um, Chuck Berry, Hail Hail Rock and Roll. Now this is kind of that other kind of different. It's not. It's a movie, but it was also almost like a documentary. I mean, it kind of was a documentary. So this is kind of their performance of all these tunes, and Chuck Berry was notorious for having bands that were just, pickup groups. He would go to a new town, and he would go to the Union Hall and pick up musicians that would play backing for him, and he would then perform his tunes. And Keith Richards, for one, said, "Hey, let's give you a real band behind you," and he got a bunch of stellar artists together to be the backing band, and this is that performance, and great stuff. great stuff. I mean, I already love Chuck Berry, so take an artist you love and put them with a really solid group and guys that can really play, and you have a winner. That's it. It's great. Um, Beverly Hills Cop. Well, this one sold a lot back in the 80s. New Attitude by Patti LaBelle. Um, Looking at some of the others. Neutron Dance, that was another one by the Pointer Sisters. The Heat Is On by Glenn Frey. So, usually you don't get that many, Axel F. You don't usually get that many solid songs on a soundtrack, but this one did have a lot of solid songs. And it wasn't all done by one artist. Yeah, this is a bunch of artists but they were fresh. I mean, this is like the first time they got released. They weren't like released and then pulled for um, the soundtrack. So anyway, that was a very good one. James Bond, 13 original themes. Will always love James Bond themes. I mean, Shana Easton, Carly Simon, Paul McCartney, Lulu, Shirley Bassey, Nancy Sinatra, Louis Armstrong, Tom Jones, Rita Coolidge, Matt Monroe. So that, every time I hear that little guitar riff, it's like, oh yeah. So these are fun, and I can recommend that. James Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me. That's a solid one. That has the Carly Simon tune on it, but nobody does it better. But you also have the instrumental version of it, so maybe it's kind of fun to listen to that. Just being a little different, or maybe you're a karaoke person and you want to sing to it yourself. Here we have the Goldfinger, right? Sean Connery, James Bond, Goldfinger. Uh, um, yeah, all pretty cool. I don't know. I just love James Bond stuff. Here's another Goldfinger. This is some Asian import, I believe. I mean, not looking further. Here's Dr. No, James Bond theme. Even some of the other stuff on these records, Jamaican jazz, Jamaican rock. Some of that stuff can be fun to explore. They would play some music of the local area sometimes. And what do we got here? The Incredible World of James Bond. Okay, James Bond theme. Roy Holmes Orchestra. So this might be a lot of different James Bond music done by an orchestra. I don't know if this was the original orchestra or not, Leroy Holmes Orchestra. But that's one more, James Bond, and now we go into Blade Runner. Bond, Blade, I might be have that alphabetized, but like I said, this is just barely organized to some extent. So here we are, Blade Runner, with Harrison Ford. Vangelis. He was another one of those. I was trying to think of artists that did a lot of movie soundtracks, and Vangelis did a lot of soundtracks. Marauder. There's a bunch. Anyway, we're gonna come across them as we go through here. Blue Collar, Richard Pryor, Harvey Keitel. What we got on here? Hardworking Man, performed by Captain Beefheart. Here's one by Jack Nietzsche. Another Jack Nietzsche. Wang Dang Doodle, performed by Howlin' Wolf. So this is kind of an interesting compilation of tunes. Jack Nietzsche's an interesting composer. I have a Jack Nietzsche record, Lonely Surfer, I think it's called. Um, but he did a lot of music. He did a lot of music. Can. Frank Sinatra, Shirley MacLaine. So there's a soundtrack with Frank Sinatra, Shirley MacLaine, Maurice Chevalier. Um, so here's a favorite, Car Wash. And trying to see if it's got a bunch of others. I assume it would. It's got George Carlin was in the movie. Professor Irwin Corey, um, the Pointer Sisters, Richard Pryor, Norman Whitfield did the music. But Car Wash. Let's see what we got inside here. Looks like images maybe from the movie. Um, so that's fun. You know, if you're in your disco mood. What do we got here? Oh, Henry Mancini. Well, there's another one of those classic composers. Did lots of movies. I'm looking at the back of this, and this Atari, Charade, The Pink Panther, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Mr. Lucky, um, Peter Gunn. Bunch of great movie themes. And here's some of those. There's Charade with Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn. And there's Mr. Lucky. Ooh, they're advertising a stereo system back here. It looks pretty high tech. Clockwork Orange. There we go, Clockwork Orange. That one, Stanley Kubrick. Some of the images inside there. Screenplay. Oh, it's a mixture. It's a mixture. The music from Clockwork Orange, Ninth Symphony, William Tell Overture. So a lot of odds and ends, as far as not all original music. Cocktail. Now, Cocktail is Tom Cruise, but it's Robbie Neville, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, Starship, Bobby McFerrin, Georgia Satellites with Hippie Hippie Shake. Little Richard. A lot of times you pick up these because you're interested in a couple of songs, that was only released on the soundtrack, or maybe it's just a way to get a lot of different tunes that you've been looking for in one place. And that's the end of episode 1 of soundtracks and movie themes and whatnot. All right. Have a great day, and the champ out.